Welcome to a new episode. I don't know whether you're familiar with the TED Talks. These talks, which were born back in the 80s, started as exclusive in-person live events. Rather elitist events, I should say. It was essentially a conference format, featuring world-class speakers. And then, once the internet video platforms came along, they began uploading these talks for free and freely available to anyone. And they turned into a viral phenomenon. Well, time flies. By 2011, they had already like 500 million views, and everybody knew what a TED Talk was. And now, here I am trying to explain it to you. It seems like Instagram and probably the rest of the social networks exhausted our attention spans. It seems nobody can stomach long, brainy videos anymore. But following TED Talks, I've learned so much. I've learned so many things that even if lately I have to admit I don't pay much attention to my YouTube subscription, I remain enormously grateful to them. And I'm gonna tell you that that's the way I came across to a guy called Niklas Modig, which is a professor and researcher at the Stockholm School of Economics, and the talk he gave in 2016 in one town in the north of Sweden called Umeå, which deals broadly with a concept he calls the efficiency paradox. After watching the whole video that lasts, almost 20 minutes, I was swept up in a feeling of rediscovery. He managed to explain something complex, something every one of us in management deals with, in a wonderfully simple way. The concept is the efficiency paradox, and the visual analogy is that of islands of efficiency. Ever since this rediscovery, it's a concept I've gone on using in my talks, in my articles, and of course in my book. I even borrowed the graphic image this author proposed to illustrate the phenomenon. The image of a group of small islands all sitting close to one another. In today's episodes, I'm going to try to explain what this efficiency paradox teaches us, and what these islands of efficiency look like when we apply them to our fresh produce world. I'm David Del Pino and this is Fresconomics. Welcome to the fresh produce business, a world where uncertainty is the only constant and volatility shapes every decision. Every day, remarkable people navigate this chaos with skill and courage. Join me as we explore the hidden logic of this industry to decode what others call unpredictable. Mr. Modig and his co-author, Mr. Alstrom, use the analogy of a group of islands as a powerful visual image of a system that is only nominally connected. Very often, those of us connected by a business value chain, we are like a group of islands. We can almost see one another from one island to another, and yet we operate disconnected from any common logic. Each island perfectly formed, with its own ecosystem running like clockwork, but between them, the ocean. A few kilometers of water that make communication, trade, and movement difficult. Each island, at the end, optimizes according to its own internal resources. But are they optimized to function together? Well, not necessarily. We all know that. In system theory, this is well known. And we engineers were trained to spot inefficiencies and bottlenecks to be able to manage chained processes within production systems. And when you actually get down to the work, it quickly becomes obvious that the more you fine-tune each process individually to maximum efficiency, the more inefficient the system as a whole becomes. This is the efficiency paradox that Modig and Alstrom warns us about. Even if you get an entire factory to run very, very efficiently, The more efficient it becomes, the more it ends up as nothing but an island of efficiency the moment you have to connect it to customers' orders, suppliers' deliveries, and to all the other supporting services and functions. In other words, to the rest of the value chain. And if we take our sector as a whole, the entire value chain, the theory of the efficiency paradox and the islands of efficiency where we all live becomes particularly clear. Agricultural production has focused on producing the maximum possible kilos of a given product, frequently without stopping to ask whether the sizes, the flavor, the shelf life, the planting cycle, and so on are the right ones for serving the customer and meeting consumers' expectations. On the other hand, the pack houses and marketeers, for their part, favor long production runs of highly standardized products in order to drive down cost. Never mind the fact that consumers want highly personalized products and that customers are asking for prompt and frequent deliveries. And the distributors, meanwhile, ask for fixed quantities of product to fill their shelves to the millimeter with whatever maximizes the margin of the store and of the produce section, without taking into account that production volumes naturally fluctuate. And the consumer, who has lost any feel for fresh produce, stocks up fruits and veggies as though it were rice, filling up the pantry and the fridge once a week, generating, of course, food waste in the process, and then claiming that our products are not fresh. In short, every link in the value chain is operating as an island of efficiency, but each with its own private notion of efficiency that has very little to do with anyone else. And here's the counterintuitive part, the paradox. The more you optimize each individual process, the more inefficient the complete system becomes. As we can see, the cost of this disconnection, of this misalignment of interest and incentives, translates into food waste, price wars, margin erosion, products that reach the consumer lacking freshness, a loss of competitiveness, of course, against other food options, a mismatch between what it gets produced and what it gets demanded, and promotions that actually destroy value instead of creating it. This is exactly the same logic that led us to propose strategically aligned supply chains, a concept you've already heard me talk about. If we can align the logic and the incentives, we'll be able to overcome the efficiency paradox and improve the competitive positions of everyone who belongs to those aligned chains. But that's easy to say. Are there ways to pull it off? Let's try to find out. The first great challenge to overcome is what Stephen Covey calls the circle of influence and the circle of concern, two concepts that he proposed in his 1989 book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The circle of concern takes in all the things that we care about, but over which we have little or no direct control. Let's say global events, international politics, things happening far beyond our immediate spheres of influence. And the circle of influence, by contrast, refers to those areas of our lives where we do hold direct influence, the things on which we can take actions and make decisions that have a real impact. Not that Covey was especially original. Long before him, the Stoic philosophers were using an analogous idea that it was called the dichotomy of control, the distinction between what lies within our control, our actions, thought, and decisions, and what doesn't, external events or other people's actions. So it is only natural that we focus on the things that we can actually do something about. The grower optimizes what they can control. Their circle of influence is made up of kilos per square meter, planting cycles, varietal choice. The problem is that they are optimizing only within their own island, without considering that their circle of influence could expand if they collaborated with the other links in the chain. They are proactive within their limited sphere, but only reactive when it comes to the system as a whole. For me, this is the key. We have an opportunity to widen our circle of influence. That circle doesn't end at the functions tied up to our position in the value chain or at the operations of our own company. It is with that conviction that I spent my entire professional career pushing at and stretching my own circle of influence. Why do you think I do this podcast or the blog? And I know, I am well aware of how hard it is. It is a genuine paradigm shift, one that requires safe spaces for collaboration. And an expanded circle of influence needs communication and trust. It means moving from an individual oriented philosophy to an ecosystem philosophy. From I win, you lose to we win together or we lose together. And that's precisely why it is so difficult. Game theory give us a clue, give us a hint on just how difficult. In game theory, there is this concept of the prisoner's dilemma. Two prisoners are interrogated separately. If they both cooperate, meaning in that sense that they both stay silent, both come out ahead with, light sentences. If both betray each other, both come out worse off with moderate sentences. And finally, if one betrays and the other cooperates, the traitor walks free and the cooperator gets the maximum sentence. Individual logic says, hey, betray, be a traitor, and collective logic says, cooperate. Our industry lives in a perpetual prisoner dilemma. Each link optimizes its own individual benefit without ever considering the impact on the system. And we all lose at the end. But there is hope. This fresh produce prisoners game is one we play very often. We have to face one another every single day, and every day, sometimes many times. And when the prisoners know each other and they know that they'll meet again, well, cooperation emerges naturally. That's the key to start opening channels towards these islands. And of course, this requires, for once, shared information. We know that communication builds community and that we need two-way information flows. The grower needs to know what's happening at this point of sale, and the retailer, on the other hand, needs to understand the constraints of production. But we also need shared metrics. It simply can't be that everyone measures success in a different way. Let's say we need KPIs that show the performance of the whole chain and not just each link individual performance. Of course, we need shared benefits. Behavioral economics teaches us that the incentives matter, and they matter a lot. If we only reward individual success, well, we're gonna breed islands. We need structures that reward collective success. The thing we used to call, rather pretentiously, I should say, the win-win approach. And finally, and probably the most important thing, we need trust. And here's where the psychology of relationships comes in. Trust is built with time, transparency, and of course, reciprocity. Without trust, there is no chain, only disconnected links. The next time you're optimizing part of the business, ask yourself, am I building my most efficient islands, or am I laying bridges towards the rest of the islands? Real efficiency isn't about doing your own job as well as you possibly can in isolation. Real efficiency is about doing your job in a way that best contributes to the system as a whole. It's the difference between being the finest violinist playing solo and being part of a wonderful orchestra that moves people to tears. Between being the most prosperous island in the ocean, to being part of a wealthy, connected continent. Breaking out of the isolated islands model is hard. It means giving up part of your control, sharing sensitive information, trusting people who once were competitors or rivals across the negotiation table. and walking that road carries plenty of risk. I know it. I know it does. But I tell you this, there is a new reality taking shape in the markets, and the islands of efficiency won't be safe harbors of optimization anymore. They will be relics of a model that is already beginning to stop working. And that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I invite you to subscribe to Fresconomics on your favorite platform. You can find me on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and even on YouTube. And remember to share it with others. Help me connect with the community of professionals in the fresh produce industry. Although it may take a while, I promise to respond to any questions, contributions, or suggestions you may send to web@daviddelpino.com. And of course, you can also visit my blog at daviddelpino.com, where you'll find out how to get a copy of the book Fresconomics, along with articles and additional content. Until next time, take care and try to enjoy this crazy business.